Today we're looking at one of the most romantic and beautiful historical cities in the world, Paris, France's capital since the 12th century. Paris is home to some of the most famous buildings and landmarks. Its cathedrals and monuments are full of rich history and attract millions of visitors each year. The streets of the city, which have on many occasions transformed into battlements and been showered with gunfire, are now lined with France's most famous designer boutiques and picturesque terrace cafes because the Lux.com is dedicated to becoming the world's best resource on the most expensive luxury items and stunning destinations. We just had to bring you a video about one of Europe's most glamorous cities, the ultimate romantic destination and honeymoon spot. This is 15 things you didn't know about Paris. Number 1. The Eiffel Tower was initially considered to be a useless monstrosity. The city's best and brightest originally hated the Eiffel Tower when it was opened in 1889. The press insulted it and the city's most famous artists and writers expressed their disdain quite openly to get him up. Hassan said he started eating in the restaurant of the tower because it was the only place he couldn't see it. As of 2015, the Eiffel Tower is the most visited paid tourist attraction in the world. So people clearly changed their minds along the way. Number 2. There are 1,200 bakeries to choose from in the city. Parisians take their bread very, very seriously. And you can choose to buy your baguettes from 1,200 different bakeries across the city. There are actually quite strict rules regarding the consistency of the baguette dough, how long it is and how much it can be charged to be called a bullet injury. The bakery must bake their bread on site, and bakeries in a neighborhood will have different opening times so people will never be faced with a closed sign. Number 3. 10 professional film and photography shoots take place in Paris every single day. New York is one of the most popular cities in the world for film shoots, but Paris is hot on its heels. Fashion campaigns, photo shoots and film shoots are commonly shot on the streets of the French capital. Filming on the street is actively encouraged by the French government because it boosts their economy considerably, mainly because production teams have to pay to shoot in parks, museums or in front of particular monuments. Number 4. Filmmakers have to pay the Louvre's architect royalties if they get the famous glass pyramid in shot filming Paris. Classic famous monuments like Notre Dame or the Eiffel Tower is absolutely encouraged. But if you want to feature one of the city's modern constructions, prepare for a big bill. The pyramid's architect Insaf now charges royalties for any filmmaker who wants to feature his 1989 construction. Maybe best to stick to the chancel. If you're making a small indie film. Number 5. It would take nearly 30 years to visit every terrace bar and restaurant in the city. Paris is famous for its cosmopolitan café culture, and most bars, cafes and restaurants become open terraces when the weather is nice. There are so many open terraces, 9,057 of them. In fact, that if you went to one each day, it would take you 29.8 years to sample them all. Your coffee bill would be even longer as well. Number 6. The Paris train system was originally going to be called MERD. The original proposed name for the city's train system was Metro Express Regional Defense Wall. But when abbreviated it spelled murdered, a famous French swear word that we're all quite familiar with wisely. The name was changed to Réseau Express Régional to save the city and the world's 4th largest public transport system. Any embarrassment? Number 7. The shortest street in the city is 6 meters long and the longest is 4,360 meters long. Paris is a labyrinth of 6,100 streets, some famously congested and others that wind around tiny little bistros. The shortest street in the city, de Grès, is just 5.75 meters long and technically a stone staircase. The longest is the Rue de Vaugirard, which runs from Boulevard Saint-Michel to Porte de Versailles and covers the 6th to 15th arrondissements. It's 4,360 meters long and much more than a little staircase. Number 8. The Eiffel Tower has been known to move. Particular weather conditions can make the Eiffel Tower move and shift in strong winds. The Eiffel Tower has been known to sway 13 centimeters, and during a 1976 heat wave, it shifted 18 centimeters away from the sun. Alexandre Gustave. Eiffel wouldn't be surprised by this if he were alive today. He accommodated movement of up to 70 centimeters in the construction and design. Number 9. The richest woman in Europe is L'Oréal shareholder and Paris resident Liliane Bettencourt. The French heiress and businesswoman is an incredible 94-year-old woman and worth $38.2 billion. Her father founded the cosmetics company in 1907 and she now owns a third of it. In 2008, people were found guilty of trying to con Bettencourt out of millions, taking advantage of her progressing Alzheimer's. They were ordered to repay $172 million to her and were each sentenced to 3 years in prison. Number 10. Some visitors to Paris will suffer from Paris syndrome, and no one really knows why. Paris syndrome is a transient psychological disorder, which includes symptoms such as hallucination, derealization, dizziness, anxiety, and depersonalization. It's suggested to be brought on by the stress of traveling and experiencing a wildly different culture. Paris syndrome was first identified by a Japanese psychiatrist in 1986, who noticed that Japanese tourists were particularly prone to suffering from it. Number 11. In 2015, a Paris chateau sold for $444 million, making it the most expensive property in the world. The Chateau Louis XIV is practically next door to the Great Versailles and was built in 2011 to resemble the classic 17th-century French estate sold to a Middle Eastern buyer. It beat a London penthouse which sold in 2014 for $326 million and was considered by Kim Kardashian and Kanye West when they were shopping for wedding venues. If you want to know which property overtook the Paris Chateau in 2016. The 10 most expensive houses in the world. Number 12. One of the most unusual homes in Paris is an apartment left untouched for 70 years. Mrs. de Florian left France before the Second World War and Nazi occupation, and with it, she left her apartment in the 9th arrondissement. The rent continued to be paid throughout her life, and the property was left completely undisturbed until her death in 2013 when the dust was blown away. One 19th-century painting by Giovanni Baldini was discovered, which later sold at auction for $1.7 million. Number 13. There aren't 666 panes of glass in the Louvre Pyramid. Despite what Dan Brown says, the rumor that there are 666 panes of glass began in the 1980s and was reported by newspapers, but someone has done the math and there are actually 673 panes. Dan Brown's The Da Vinci Code brought the myth back to life in 2003 as it formed a part of the novel's plot, but still it's not true. 14. Tom Cruise's involvement in the Church of Scientology means he's banned from becoming an honorary Paris citizen. Hollywood might accept Scientology, but France definitely doesn't. According to French law, Scientology has been classed as a cult since 1995, and this has barred vocal supporter Tom Cruise from becoming a French citizen. He tried to apply in 2005, but the municipal government of Paris said no. Number 15. The French resistance stopped Hitler from visiting the Eiffel Tower during the Nazi occupation. Hitler's presence in Paris was not enjoyed by the French people for very obvious reasons. When it was time for the German dictator to visit France's most famous monument, the French resistance cut the elevator cables, so climbing 1,500 stairs was the only way to get to the top and admire the view. Herr Hitler decided against it, and the French's small act of rebellion worked. Approximately 32 million people visit Paris every year, and no wonder. The City of Light has everything: the best food in the world, beautiful streets, culture, excitement, art, not to mention its fair share of history. The majority of tourists who come to Paris are from the US and looking for a big slice of European class. Visitors also spend more in Paris than both London and New York. So the city certainly attracts big spenders. If you were one of those big spenders, where would you stay in Paris? Would you opt for the classic Ritz Paris in the heart of the city, or would you hotfoot it over to the ultra-cool Montmartre and stay in a unique boutique hotel overlooking a typical Parisian rue? Here's another impressive fact about the French capital. We know that Parisians love their wine, and they love it so much that a journalist was blacklisted in 1976 for reporting a blind wine tasting that compared Californian and French wines. A Californian wine won when it was blindly tasted. And this was such an abhorrent idea to the people of Paris that a Bordeaux vineyard owner told him, "You've spat in our suit." Thank you for spending some time with us. Make sure to subscribe so you never miss a video. If you want more, be a part of the largest community of luxury enthusiasts in the world and tell your story.